Alrighty. So, good evening. For those who don't know me, I am Kelsey Irvine. I am a 4-H agent here in Nassau County, and I am your 2023 chair for this year. Also on the call, we have a few other amazing agents. So I'll first turn it over to Miss Allie, who will introduce herself.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Allie Pervat. I am from St. Johns County, and I serve as your vice chair for Area North.
And then our other amazing agent joining us the call is Miss Grace.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Carter. I'm one of the 4-H agents in Duval County, and I help take care of all of the back end for registration for Area North. So I'm working with your agents on that. If you have any registration questions, you can definitely feel free to reach out.
Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a quick poll. Some of these questions you've already answered, but some people join in afterwards and some people are kind of mixed while they're in the call. So we're just going to launch that quick poll. If you wouldn't mind taking a quick second, there's a whole 4 questions, but that will help us guide our conversation for tonight on how we can best serve you and get you oriented for this year's horse show. So your first question is just going to be whether or not this is your first show. We see that a lot of the registrants that did sign up tonight, this is your first show. So welcome to our Area North Fun. We like to believe that we are the best in the state, but we are biased. But that's all right. And then also, we want to know where you're getting the information about Area North so that we can better serve you for years to come, because we know communication is always your first barrier that gets broken down. And then the next couple ones, just how long you've been involved. So again, with those years comes experience, but that also means you've seen changes and seen the many different faces that Area North has had these last few years. And then I'm just curious to see what your favorite thing is, because again, we are very biased. We love our Area North. So we want to see what you love about it as well. So while that poll is running, we'll go ahead and get started with some of the big changes for this year. So as you have hopefully noticed by this point, we do have almost 60 registrants already for this year's show. So we are getting back to good numbers. Registration is through 4-H Online. So Ms. Grace will cover those questions later on in the slides as you get more comfortable with that registration process. But it is new, so that is a big change we wanted you to be aware of for this year, and it does close Friday. So you have a couple of days to get those registrations in. There's still time. There has been some big rulebook changes. So we want you to make sure that you have either received your hard copy rulebook, which mine's always written all over, but we do have a digital version that you can find on the state website, but we're also going to put that link in the chat here. So you guys can always visit that chat at any point, Control F, and actually search for a specific question if you need anything. So you'll have access to the rule books there. We got really good feedback about our sportsmanship bucket, so we are going to do that again. So we'll talk more about our sportsmanship focus in Area North later on, but know that the bucket is back, so you could win the bucket this year. We did have some changes to our hunter classes that Ms. Grace is going to talk about. We have now subdivided them by height, not age, which is really going to give you that opportunity to best show your horse and rider combination to the best of its ability. We are starting another new thing. So Area North always seems to have something new and fun. So we are starting something called an equine exchange, aka a yard sale. So we're going to give you that opportunity to kind of have that interactivity with some items that may be helpful for your show experience. As always, volunteers are absolutely needed to run this show. So if you're interested in volunteering in any capacity, let us know in the chat, and we'll try to hook you up with a place where you can help your show be as successful as possible. Due to the feedback, we've added more walk-trot classes, and we are actually seeing a good chunk of our riders this year being our walk-trot riders. So welcome to the fun. We are excited to help you learn and get comfortable with the show environment. And then there is a new intermediate to regionals protocol that Ms. Wendy can talk about at the very end. So if you are an intermediate looking to potentially show to the regionals level, you will have that opportunity. She'll explain how you get there. So looking at our poll results, we're about 50-50 first year showers. So please feel free to write questions in the chat if you're a new shower or if you want to clarify something. we do want to be able to answer those questions. That's the whole point of tonight. And it looks like we have a wide range of combination where we're getting information. So if there's ever another source that we can add for you, please let us know. We want to make sure you get that information. And gosh, really good results on what you love most. I love seeing that our highest is just the fact that we are a friendly show environment. So thank you guys for recognizing we're nice people. You don't get to say that about every horse show. So we do take pride in that. We are nice here. It can make or break your horse riding experience. So moving forward, for those of you who did register and ask any of those pre-webinar questions, these are the ones that we got ahead of time to confirm. So we have confirmed our judges, but we do not announce them ahead of time. So you will find out during the show, but we can promise you that, as always, we try to choose high quality judges who want to interact with you, who want to ask questions, who want to give you that feedback. So I can't give you names, but I can promise you quality. The other combination of questions that we had a few talking about horse rider combinations. This is a new rule for multi-horse entries. No horse or rider can be in the same class more than once. So even if you are a different horse rider combination, you cannot be in that same class twice. That horse cannot be in that same class twice. So we did have a little bit of confusion with that, but hopefully that answers a little bit easier. So if there's something moving forward, you want to know more about that horse rider combination, feel free to type that for us. We also got asked about our versatility buckles, which are very well loved, and we are happy to announce that yes, they are back. So we always try to keep our buckles for versatility. And our High Point Awards this year are going to be beautiful. And we will show those off at the show like we did last year. So we'll have those on display as you guys come in to check in. We do not have a formal photographer this year. So we apologize for that. But if you do get great shots, please send them to us because we would absolutely love to share them with others. So take pictures for people, help people out, and then, of course, capture the moments. And as for class conflicts, so we did have a few pre-webinar Q&As talking about, is this class going to conflict with this one? How is this ring going to confirm with this? We're not going to know that until all our registrations are in. And so what we'll do is we actually run a full report for all of our riders of class conflicts. So once our all our registrations are in by the end of Friday and reconfirmed that next week by agents, we can run those reports. And if you are at jeopardy of being in that conflict, we will make sure that we address that with you. So do not fear, we want you to succeed. But keep that in mind, you may have class conflicts, but we really do try our best to figure out how to best work with that. So those are your pre-asked Q&As. So thank you for those who sent them in, because I'm sure many of you had those same questions. And I think it's always good to start with those earlier ones. Whew. So we updated our schedule. So we do listen to your feedback to really improve this show every year. So the first thing we wanted to bring your attention to is you can walk our trail course now from 10 to 11 a.m. on foot. So that was something we really wanted you to be more familiar with as you're getting comfortable with trail, is have that opportunity to actually put your feet near it, understand it, and get that experience. So you do have that ability to walk it on foot, just not with the horse. And the next thing we wanted to add was for our dressage friends. So we have extended your dressage start time to 6 instead of 5:30. So that gives you another half hour to get there, to warm up, to settle in, to groom. And we start with our Western and our traditional starting around 6:45. However, if we don't have a ton of dressage, it's more of an order, less of an order go and more come as you're ready. So if you are there and you are ready and you want to get it done, I'm fairly certain Mr. Terry will help you make sure that happens. So our judges, again, are lovely, but we did want to let you know that we did extend that start time to help better incorporate those who are traveling. So this is going to get passed over to Grace. So we did want this year to have our orientation before registration closed in case anyone had questions, wanted to clarify their divisions, or just kind of get a sense of what Area North is before you commit to it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Grace, and we will get your registration questions answered.
Hi, everyone. So I know some of you may have already registered online, and that is awesome. For those of you who have not had an opportunity to register yet, registration is open now through April 14th, and that is going to be in 4-H Online. So in 4-H Online, the same place you go to re-enroll for 4-H every year or to sign up for any events at the state level, or maybe even some events at the county level, you'll go there. And one thing that's important to note is your registration fee is also due to your local 4-H office by April 14th. So unless you've checked with your local 4-H agent and made some alternate plans, don't wait until 11:30 at night on April 14th to go through the registration process. Another reason that's a good idea to not wait is because if you get in there and you get any sort of confusion or you have some questions about a registration, you can always call your local 4-H agent. If they aren't a horse person, you're welcome to call any of us on the call this evening and we can help answer some of those registration questions as well, but always start with your local 4-H agent before you go elsewhere. So they can help you with any registration questions. When you finish your registration process, it will total everything out for you, just like it has in previous years, so you know how much that you're going to owe your local office. Now, one thing that is different is in previous years, you would sign up and then you would have to print off a form and you would have to sign that form that you got via email. This year, you don't have to do any of that. So once you are in 4-H Online and registering, anything that needs a signature, you're going to sign in 4-H Online and confirm in 4-H Online. Now, if you are showing more than one horse, you will need to complete a separate registration for each horse. So know that just because you've registered once, if you're planning on bringing a second horse, you need to register a second time as well. And then remember that for area shows, you do have to have a horse project certification form on file with your local county office in order to be eligible to register. So make sure that you've had that horse project certification form in on time and that you are good to go for that registration process. Now, we always say talk with your trainer about which classes would be best for you this year. And then consider which classes are potentially happening simultaneously. Like Ms. Kelsey said, we'll make sure we follow up with you if we see any sort of conflicts. But if you know going in that you wanted to participate in both a Western in-hand class and a Hunter in-hand class, you're probably going to wind up with some conflicts there. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. So be thinking those things through as you're planning out your classes. And then if you have any questions about which class combinations are allowed or not allowed, you're always welcome to reach out to us as well. One that comes up frequently is that unless you are only showing in-hand classes, you're not planning to ride at all, you can do a ground handling class and a showmanship class, but you can't do 2 showmanship classes and you can't do 2 ground handling classes. So that's when you want to think about, because if we see that come through, we're going to have to kick that registration back to you. So be thinking of those. And then if you have any questions, definitely reach out to your local 4-H office and you can reach out to us as well if they can't get an answer for you. Is this one me as well, Kelsey? I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. So our educational display contest is one of our favorite parts of the Area North Horse Show program. So this is where you get a chance to actually work with the other youth in your county to put on an educational display to teach us something about the equine world. And you can get really creative with what that something is. So the educational display contest, you'll get the area of one stall, and there's not going to be anything in it. So any tables you need, you'll want to bring any sort of items to hang things from the wall, you'll want to plan to bring that too. And you need to reserve those stalls in advance. So what will happen is with your group, you will work together to create something that's going to teach us something about horses. Bonus, if it's interactive, that's even better. And then we will have judges come through on Saturday morning. All of our participants are also welcome and encouraged to check out all of these educational stalls too and see what you learn. but judges will come through. They have a rubric, and we're happy to share that rubric with you. And they'll take a look, and the winning educational display wins the spirit stick that you get to keep and hold on to for a year, but you also get a sponsored tack stall for the state show. So we will cover a tack stall for you for the state show to help you out there. And once again, it is by county. So not by club or not by individual. We do want you to work with the other youth who are participating from your county. So plan some time to meet with them and come up with a theme, check with your 4-H agent and see if anyone else is interested. And we'd love to have you sign up for that. Your agents have all of the information on how to contact us and register. So just let them know you're interested and we'll get you ready to go.
So here's a fun new thing. So at our winter cattle clinic that Clay County put on for Area North, we had an amazing table of just, here, we have extra things, who needs them? And so that started a conversation of how can we do this for all of our members? Because we do work with a wide variety of members. Maybe they're trying a new discipline. Some of us are just luckier, they have access to more things than other of us. I'll be the first to tell you, most of my life I had a hay-string halter. So this is a great way for us to be able to share what we have with others, as well as get rid of some of the junk in our trunks. So we're starting our equine exchange this year. So it's completely new. We're going to see how it goes, play it out. So what we're going to do is each county, if you're interested in participating in the equine exchange, you're going to get another tack stall, which is going to be adjacent to your educational display. So that way you're not having to go to multiple places to carry things. So it'll be right next to each other. And you have to request it. So it's going to be the same process of requesting a stall for educational display. Just say, hey, we're going to participate this year in the exchange. Can we have a stall? And we'll get you set up and we'll get you organized. This is not a formal sale. So you should not have anyone in your stall actively selling things. There's not going to be a receipt system. It is strictly just we have extra items, who needs them? So with that also being said, this is horse only things. So it must be related to either the horse or the horse showing. So you can bring old show clothes if you want, or you are welcome to bring anything related to taking care of your horse that is legal within 4-H. So don't bring bits that aren't legal, and don't do things like that. But we do want to have that exchange for those who might need something. I have also been in the situation where something has broke last minute and the closest Tractor Supply or feed store was way too far away, so I was very panicked. So sometimes having access to that extra pair of reins can really make a difference. So with that being said, any items that are brought in from your county and are not adopted by another family or youth must go home with you. We are not in the business of keeping all of your extra things. So if you bring it and it doesn't find a home, please take it back with you. And then we are going to have a general donation jar. So the general donation jar is just going to be if you have the ability to put something towards what you take, kind of like a give a penny, take a penny concept. It's not required, but if you have something, all of that proceed is going to go towards supporting the tax stall for the educational display winners. So we're helping our youth that way. And then anything beyond that cost is going to go towards making our awards better for that next year. So any proceed is going to directly go back to what we can do to improve the show for everybody. So that's new and exciting. I hope to see some really fun stuff. And hopefully this will help somebody out and make their show experience that much better because they have access to something. So this is now going to get passed off to Miss Stephanie, who is our grounds chair. So she's going to talk to you all about the information about check-in and anything you need to know with your grounds.
Hey everybody, can you hear me okay? Good. So welcome to the orientation. Just a few little things about ground information and check-in. It hasn't really changed much from last year. Remember that you will need to bring your Coggins along with your horse, and that you are not to unload your horse until you have been checked by the state inspector. That is not a policy of Area North faculty. That is actually from the state inspector himself. He does not want the horses off the trailers until they have been checked. And as a current recipient of a beautiful warning award from ag inspectors. They are taking it very seriously. So please just make sure you leave your horses on the trailer till they go through the Coggins process at check-in. You'll be given a Coggins ticket once you check in, and you can take that to registration with you. That way at registration, they'll know that you've gone through the Coggins check and you're cleared to get your stall information, and you can get your horses into your stalls. So what you will need to bring to check-in is that ticket. And then you will also need to bring your bits if you or your bridles, I guess, if you're in speed events. So speed events, you need to bring your bridles, unless I'm confused on that. Did we change that? No, okay. I didn't think we did. Just double checking. So this is a great night. If you have questions about your bits, I'm going to tell you the same thing we told you last year. You need to send a picture of your bridle and your bit to your agent, and your agent will look at it. If they cannot determine if it's legal, we will send it up to the state office. We strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you not to wait until you get to the show, because if you get to the show and that's the only bit you have and it is not approved, Tractor Supply is probably 36 minutes away from the show. So I would strongly encourage you. I know last orientation we said it multiple times. We'll say it again. Send a picture of your bit to your agent. If you have an agent that has no horse knowledge, or you don't have an agent right now, send a picture of the bit to Miss Kelsey, Miss Grace, myself, Miss Allie in St. Johns County. We will make sure that we get your bit looked at. It has to be a clear picture. That's number one, clear pictures. And it has to show us all sides of your bits. So let me be clear on the pictures too, but we definitely will try to help you guys with that ahead of time, so that you don't get there the day of show and just kind of get stuck with what you have or rush to have to borrow something. At the check-in, you're going to receive your stall assignments. You're going to receive your back numbers, the show schedule, and patterns. So just keep that in mind. You're going to get all of that in check-in. Your stall assignments are not going to change. They're going to be like they always have been the past few years, where you're going to be in county blocks. So you can move wherever in your county block that your agent allows you to move, but you cannot move outside of your county block. So let's just say, for example, Clay County is next to Duval County. We like a couple of Duval County stalls, so we're going to bump Duval County out of the way. You cannot do that. Sorry, Grace. You cannot do that. You have to stay in your allotted county blocks. And I'll tell you the main reason for that is if there happens to be an emergency overnight, and we have to track horses down or figure out what horses are, and you guys have moved and you're not in the places that we thought you were, it just causes a lot of chaos for us. So there kind of is a method to why we do that. So please just, please deal with that and understand that we're not being mean. We try to, when I do the stall assignments, if you were in the back of the barn one year, we try to move you to the front of the barn the next year. If you'll notice, Clay County is not always up at the front of the barn. So it's not like we play favorites. We try to do a little bit of back and forth so that everybody can be at the front of the barn, because we do understand it's kind of a pain to walk through it. Your shavings will be on a trailer outside of the stall barns for you to pick up. Again, we'll have a process for them. Please do not just go take the shavings off the trailer, because some people have paid, some people have not. If you're bringing shavings in on your own, that's fine too, but you are going to have to haul them from your vehicle to the stall barns. You don't get special treatment to go dump your shavings in there. So just remember that too. We will try to have dollies. I know we tried to do that last year. I brought a couple from Clay County, and I know a couple of the other agents brought dollies or carts. So we will try to have those available. But you obviously, if you guys have some, you can bring your own as well. You'll get stall cards. We expect you to please put your emergency contact numbers and your names. We would really appreciate it if your emergency contact numbers were current numbers, or actively working numbers. We had that last year. We had to call a couple people and the numbers were not correct. So please make sure that the numbers that are provided on the stalls are accurate and or working, or that you have clear handwriting. I think that was kind of the big thing last year, was it just was hard to decipher some of the numbers. So we'll have magic or permanent markers you can write on and stuff like that. There really isn't changes to the grounds. I will tell you, there was a lot of dogs that did not adhere to the no dogs in the barn last year. So we will be a little bit stricter on that. If you have dogs and you have them in the barn, you are going to be asked to remove them from the barn. We get that your dog is very sweet and we understand that your horse is very tolerant of dogs, but not all horses are tolerant of them. And when you start to get a lot of kids, a lot of adults, horses, and then dogs added in there, it's just kind of signing us up for a possible risk management issue. And we don't want any of that to happen. So we all have dogs. We understand what it's like to have a dog. We understand what it's like to travel with a dog, but please respect the Clay County policies of no dogs in the barns. I prefer that you don't bring a dog, period, for one. In just my opinion, it's hot. The dogs don't want to be there. I don't need to hear dogs barking at a show ring, messing up kids' rides. So, and theoretically, you're not supposed to have them on the grounds, period. So I'm not sure what Kelsey and Grace's and Allie's opinion is on that, but from the Clay County's perspective, you are not supposed to have dogs on the grounds. It's a risk management. So I don't know if they want to chime in on that or just let it be as it is. So we're getting thumbs up. So, okay. If you are on a horse, you are wearing a helmet. That's always been a policy. That's never changed. There's no exceptions. If you are on a horse, you are to have a helmet on. If you are on a horse and you do not have a helmet on, you run the risk of being disqualified. And it's not just disqualified from one class, it's disqualified from the whole show. And that is a safety factor. Again, we do have a lot of concrete. We have had accidents where kids have fallen off and hit their heads. So please, 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 if you are on the horse, just make sure you have your helmet on. What you do at home is up to you, but what you do at Clay County, you have to have that helmet on. Yes, I agree with Kelsey put in the chat, even applies after hours. So I know you guys think we all go home and we go to bed. We do. So we do. It's very late, but we do also have night security. And night security has every right to tell you to get off your horse, to tell you to put, proper clothing on, to put shoes on, to put a helmet on. So don't put our night security in that situation either. You guys know the rules. Please just adhere to them. And it's a safety thing. We just don't want your brains having any damage to them. So let's be safe. Again, making sure you guys read the rule books. We read them every year. We skip over some things sometimes too and miss some things, but knowing what the rules are when it comes to lunging, adults knowing where you can step in and where you can't step in. Remember, this is a youth show. This is really for your children to be able to showcase what they've learned over the year and how they can handle their horse. This isn't the show where the adult mom or dad or trainer comes in and spends all the time lunging the horses and tacking the horses up. This is supposed to be for the kids, by the kids, so they can showcase their skill set. So adults, we just ask that you please make sure you're reading the rules, because if you violate the rules, obviously there's nothing we can do for you, but you're putting your child again at risk of being disqualified. And that would be sad to know that you were the reason why they were disqualified. And then, of course, just because I need you guys to know, we just ended the Clay County Fair. There's a lot of holes in our parking lot. There's a lot of holes in the RV areas. There's just a lot of holes everywhere out there right now. So please make sure that you are lunging and you are riding in the areas that are permitted for that. There's just no way possible for our fairgrounds to get everything flattened completely back out before we come. There's another big event that's coming in next weekend. So please just make sure for your safety and for your horse's safety that you are riding and lunging in those permitted areas. So that's going to be anything that's inside of the chain link fence where the show is. So anywhere where you can't drive a vehicle, that's everywhere where you can ride, if that makes sense to you guys. So let's just go ahead and make sure that's the case. Look at you, you guys are so fast with the slides. So here's the grounds map. We will again have the check-in is going to be at J. Well, it's going to be at O. No, wait a second. I'm confused. Cargill's check-in is going to be at J. And then we're going to have the regular registration at M. So nothing has changed from last year. If you've been through this before, everything stays the same. For those of you who are new, when you pull in and you see what on the map or what it's saying is J, it's right by the big American flags and the county flags. So you can't really miss that building. Then when you come into the fairgrounds with your horse, you're going to walk up to where it says Cattleman's Arena and you're going to see M. We'll have that big sign that we have, like the crossroads sign that kind of points you to where everything is. We're actually working on getting that rebuilt now. So it'll point you up to M, and that's where you're going to do your check-in. So you'll get your registration package, your stall cards, and all of that. Anything that is inside of that, well, it's kind of like a square, a backwards L maybe? I don't know how you want to describe that. Anything inside of that green perimeter is where you can ride at. There's to be no vehicles in there. So, and that is a safety thing from incidences that we've had in year past when we've had vehicles in there. So just remember, you cannot drive in there. We will try to have it so that you can pull on the backside of A and B. Those are the stall barns. What you're going to be able to do there is drive through there, unload your stuff, and drive out. If that looks like it's an issue, like it has been in the years past, we will close it down and you'll just have to walk your stuff up from the horse trailer parking lot. So when I say issues, that means somebody pulls in there and parks their vehicle for 30 minutes to an hour when other people are trying to come in and not sharing that space. So we have to be courteous of other people. So if we can find a way to make that work for you guys, obviously we will. But again, we will have those carts available. You hopefully will have your carts that you can tote stuff into. So are there any questions about facilities?
And we will have this map. It is available in your handbook. So if you guys have gotten your digital copy of your 2023 handbook, we'll have this map there too. So you don't have to worry about trying to memorize the map. We'll have that link for you. So if you don't have access to it, you can download it, but you'll also get one in your packet.
Yep.
So you will have maps.
Yeah, and we do have a big, we call it our big street sign. And like I said, we kind of put it in the corner where it points to where all the rings are and check in and all of that. Questions during the fair, sorry, literally ended yesterday. Questions during the show, you'll want to go to M. That's where show staff, there will always be a show staff in there. So just make sure if you have questions, you can go there and somebody will be able to help you. That's also where points will be or scores will be posted once they're calculated and double checked. So that's also where you'll find those at.
And then just reminding everybody this year, the educational display and the equine exchange is going to be in that barn B. So for those of you that were looking for it, that's over here. So it's right in the middle of all the things.
N is the north parking lot. In the north, Olivia had asked what N is. N is the north parking lot, and in that is the showers. So there's bathrooms throughout that whole sort of rectangle area, but there's no showers there. If you wanted to take showers, you would have to go up to where N is, and there's a shower house there. If you all lock the door to the shower house, on Friday night, I cannot get it back open for you until Monday. So you all have to make sure you are not locking that door. We had that happen last year. But that's where the shower is. That was a good question. I didn't see if there's any other questions. I don't know if somebody's.
I think you're good. So if you've got ground specific questions, you can always chat them to Miss Stephanie. She has been our grounds chair now for several years, so we can't do it without her expertise and her absolute control over those grounds. So if you have anything, she is definitely going to be your woman to reach out to. So thank you, Stephanie, for jumping in on the grounds question. And then now we're going to move into getting your horse and yourself oriented for starting your Area North journey. So these are going to be some tips on how you can tailor your routines, as well as just getting prepped for your divisions as the show in general. So we're going to turn that over to Miss Allie, and she's going to lead you through those preparation questions. Unless I think she might have got kicked off her internet Zoom again. So, so I think I have her join. There we go. So these are just some considerations you'll want to have as you are getting prepared for this year's show. So the week before the show, we want you to really start thinking about the hoof care of your horse. So if they're shoed or not shoed, making sure that their feet are in the best quality condition. Keeping that in mind, especially for ponies, the height of your hoof can be a big determining factor for whether or not they count as a pony. So keep that in mind. Make sure your feet are always clean and healthy. There's an old saying for a reason, no hoof, no horse. We fully believe that. So making sure you're paying attention to their hoof care and that, well, always, but especially that week before because you're getting close to time. We really don't recommend trimming the day of or the day or two before the show because they can be a little tender and that's just not good for them to be able to ride around on. Bathing is also important. It is a horse show. We do expect you to have a clean horse to the best of your ability. I personally have a mud monster, so I know the troubles that come with trying to keep a horse clean. But the more you can do ahead of time, it doesn't overstrip their coat of oil, so it lets them get that natural shine back, as well as get them just easier to maintain before that show starts. So it's really important to make sure you deep clean that horse to your best ability, especially the mane and tail too. Everything can get cleaned. If you do clip, we do recommend clipping fairly fair out so your horse gets that natural oils and shine back. But if you do prefer to clip closer to the show, we don't recommend doing it really closer than a week because then their hair is just kind of in that awkward stage where it's not so shiny and it's really kind of prickly and it doesn't show them off to their best ability. So if you're doing full body clipping, before the show is way better, at least more than a week. You can do it now and have a great time, but before closer than a week doesn't always look the best. That being said, full body clipping is not required. So do not feel like you need to clip your horse. You do not need to have them in any special clipping situations. We do follow the welfare rules that the hairs around the muzzle and the eyes do not need to be clipped. So those are protective hairs. It is important for that horse to have. So we don't clip those. So don't worry about stressing about that. We do recommend a bridle path for all divisions. So that's an easy thing, as well as just trimming excess hair from the outside of the ear. So nothing on the inside is required, but for a good tidy appearance, we do recommend just those outer flyaways. If you have one with very furry ears, I also have that horse, so I know the struggle. You can fold the ear over just gently and just go the outside to make it a little bit more tidy. Your judges will not penalize you if you leave your muzzles unclipped. So we know that is becoming more common practice and we love it. So do not feel that any of our judges are going to penalize you if you are opting to follow those new welfare guidelines of leaving those hairs on. So keep that in mind and make the best choices for your horse in that situation. Miss Allie, is your internet working with you finally, or is it still struggling?
It is. It just got so excited to see everyone here. It couldn't handle it. But I am back in action for now. If I disappear, I promise I will be back. All right. So other things you might want to think about before the show is make sure you check through all your TAC. Please read your rule book. Be aware of the classes you are entering in and the rules on TAC that go along with that. So make sure you are checking through to see what type of TAC is permitted and that you have that attack available, or have the time to get it if you need to before the show. And so that definitely applies for bits too. I know we talked about that already, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more later, but just doesn't hurt to double, triple check everything just to be sure. For show clothes, I know back when I was in 4-H, I only tried my show clothes on when I was showing, and sometimes that would be long breaks in between. So if you haven't tried your show clothes on in a couple months, I know everyone's probably at a growing age, so it's definitely a good idea to try those on, make sure they are comfortable, that they're fitting you well. And then again, also refer back to your rule book to see what type of clothes are appropriate for the division that you are showing in. Kind of on that same thought is checking things ahead of time is check your trailer, especially if you do not drive it often. Make sure you go through all those safety checks. So check your tires, make sure the air pressure is good, make sure all your latches, doors, your lights are working okay, that your tag is up to date, and that all of your tie clips or maybe hay rings and anything you might have inside that trailer are nice and safe for your horse. We know some of you are traveling quite a distance, and we so appreciate that. So we want you to make sure that you have a safe trip over to the show. We always recommend it's a good idea to make a list. I know it can be a lot trying to pack up and get everything sorted before you head to a show. So it never hurts when you have time to sit down and really think through everything, to make that list. That way, when you're in that crazy pre-show rush, you have something to run down and check off and cross off to make sure you've got everything you need. So please take the time to do that before you come. We'll always be happy to help you out if we have anything available, but there's some items that are at home and that's kind of the only place they are. So make sure you bring them with you. And then paperwork too. So like Stephanie mentioned, of course, we need our Coggins, but that doesn't just mean Coggins. Paperwork means maybe your registration for your trailers, all of your show paperwork to help remind you of what classes you might have signed up for. It's best if you can put this in a folder or some type of binder where it's easily accessible to you while you're driving or at the show or traveling. And that way it all stays together and you have it in one safe place. We do have a good kind of starter checklist that we will be happy to share with anyone who would like it. That will kind of give you a base point to go from of all those little things that are kind of hard to think of when you're trying to think in the grand scheme of everything you need to bring for the show, but it's a great start point. So we'll be happy to share that with you. So the week of your show, thinking about your horse, start thinking about, working that exercise plan, both for you and your horse as you approach the show. It can be stressful on both you and your horse to travel to a new place. So you want to make sure that your horse is well practiced and well rehearsed, but also that they have the time to rest and be prepared for that haul, or maybe that, extensive show weekend where you're going to have a lot of classes, a lot of practice, and a lot of things going on. So it's okay to take a little bit of downtime before you leave to the show. That way you and your horse are in their best tip-top shape before you head to the fairgrounds. When you begin packing, again, make sure you hopefully will have a list to refer to. That way you can make sure you have all of your items there, everything's organized, and you can kind of run through it a few times to double check that you have everything. Again, reread the rules. We love the rule book. It's got a lot of great information. And a lot of times it can be that first reference for some of those baseline questions that you have. And in the end, it is your responsibility to know the rules. So everyone should have access to the digital copy. You may have even gotten a hard copy in your county, but everything is available to you online in that digital version. So please, please, please make sure to review those rules before you come. That way you are aware of all the different rules for the classes you are entering, as well as just general rules that apply to the show. For rest, again, make sure that you are well rested. I know school is really busy at this time of year, so you all have a lot going on, I'm sure. So just like your horse needs rest, you need rest too. It's a long weekend, so be sure you get plenty of sleep. We want you to be in your best shape to be able to showcase all those skills and talents that you're working on all year. It's also a great idea to clean any tack or supplies that you might be bringing and using at the show. Sometimes you might have separate show tack that only comes out when you show, and maybe it's been sitting in that saddle bag for a couple weeks or a couple months and you haven't opened it to look at it. And then maybe you get there at the show and you're like, oh no, it's moldy. So you might want to check that before you head out. That way you have time to clean it and really get it polished up, and that way you can give the best picture of both you and your horse. And so make sure your tack's clean, and then it's also great to wash your horse again. We want everyone looking their best when they arrive with smiling faces. So just take the time to clean and prepare everything. That way you feel like you are the best picture when you arrive. All right, and then just some last minute checks. So it's the day before check-in. These are those final things that you need to go over. So again, double check that truck and trailer, make sure everything is safe, ready to go on the haul, whether you're hauling 30 minutes or multiple hours. It's always so important. Make sure you've got everything packed, triple check that list. Maybe there's some last minute items you need to throw in there. It's a good time to do it when you're doing those last minute checks. Again, groom your horse. It's always good for them to be comfortable and clean when they are traveling and also when they arrive. So take that extra time to make sure that they are in good shape, good condition. You've groomed them, maybe you've bathed them. And it also makes it easier so that on show day, it's a little bit less of a process to get them clean. So you can potentially, maybe if you have a horse who's got a really thick tail who constantly gets knotted, maybe you put it up in a tail braid or a sock so that it stays clean and it's easy to brush out for showing. If your horse has a lot of white on its legs, and I know my horse has a lot of white, so he loves to make me work the morning of show day. So maybe you can wrap those legs if you're trying to keep them clean. So just do some of those little extra tips to help make it easy on yourself once you arrive. Feed and water is very important, so make sure you are counting not just how much feed you need, but maybe pack a little bit of extra too. That never hurts. If you are traveling, of course, you should bring some water in a sealed container. Some horses can be a little picky, so if your horse has never traveled off property before, it might be a good idea to bring some water from home. We love our horses, but sometimes they like to make life difficult on us. So if they have a preference for the water they drink, which some of them do, then it's never a bad idea to bring that water from home just to have as a backup. And then in that folder we mentioned with all your paperwork, you're definitely going to want to print all your schedules, make sure you're aware of when and what time you need to be at the ring, any directions that you need to get to the arena or the fairgrounds. That way you are on time, everything's smooth sailing, so that the only thing you'll need to worry about that day is putting a smile on your face and doing the best you can, and you'll have everything else figured out ahead of time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allie. So we know for some of you, you have shown many times before, but we do have a large amount of youth that join us every year that this is their first real venture into the horse showing world or their venture into a higher level showing world. So we always like to remind you guys of these basic tips because we take that information for granted. And so the next thing I did want to go ahead and do a quick refresher on for everybody. So whether you've shown 1 year or 50 years, ring etiquette and personal etiquette are two things that we do pride ourselves in Area North in trying to really push for our culture and our environment. So general ring etiquette. So you should always know your patterns and your number. At any point your judge can ask you what your number is, you should know your number. It's not going to change. If you are showing multiple horses, you're going to have a different number for your rider horse combination. So double checking those numbers as well just to make sure things are good. Be on time. And in most things in 4-H world, we tend to be 5 minutes late. In the horse show world, you want to be like 15 minutes early to be on time. So try to always be where you need to be just a few minutes early. In case things run quicker, you don't want to be the last person in the ring. Knowing how to maneuver on the rail is going to be a flow of traffic concept. So in some situations, especially in like the warm-up ring, if you notice that faster traffic is staying on the rail or if faster traffic is moving more on the inside, go with that flow. So there are some places that really like that hard outside ring goes for slower. Read the room, kind of read that ring and how things are moving and match it to your safety. Check in with your gatekeeper often and frequently. Usually by the end of your division, they know you, they know your horse, they're looking for you. But it's always good to make sure you're still in there and you're checking in frequently. Position yourself on the rail to succeed. So when we want our judges to look at us, we want to make sure that we are not stuck in a sea of other horses. So this is something that can make or break sometimes those first, second place ties. So if you really know how to actively put yourself on the rail to succeed and show off your talents, it's going to be to your benefit as well as safety. If we have a giant group of horses, not only are you going to get lost in the crowd, there's a potential for any kind of danger. So space yourself out at least a couple horse distances, both to show off what you can do and keep you a little bit more safe. If you do pass on the inside, not on the outside towards the rail. That's just a safety. And if you do for anything, especially in the warm-up ring, if you're going in opposite directions, always pass left shoulder to left shoulder. That's just a good industry practice to keep you safe, but that's typically only seen in the warm-up ring. And if your horse qualifies for a red ribbon, so a red ribbon means your horse might kick another horse, there is no shame in putting a red ribbon in your horse's tail. At the end of the day, we want everyone safe. Your judge is not going to count off for you if you have that ribbon. They're not going to look at your horse and say, oh, that's a terrible horse. No, but your fellow riders will appreciate that heads up. So sportsmanship is absolutely critical for everybody. That goes for riders, parents, coaches. If you exist, you need to follow etiquette. So follow good sportsmanship, be a good human. If you need to make any kind of changes like dropping a class, changing tack, if you have class conflicts, the more communication that you can make with your gatekeepers, your fellow riders, things like that, that communication is going to make your experience much better, and then we're able to work with you more. That being said, don't demand things, ask for things. So how you conduct yourself both in and outside of the ring does reflect on you. So keep that in mind. If you need to make changes, earlier is better, kinder is best. If you see anything that you voice as a safety concern, please tell somebody. So we're going to have lots of show staff on the ground. If you see something, please say something. At the end of the day, we want you to have a wonderful experience. Safety is absolutely important. So ask questions, bring things up for concern, ask your ring stewards, ask anybody, but safety is number one. And that can be with any questions. When in doubt, ask. We have an amazing amount of wonderful showers who have some experience and less experience, different division experience. We have great coaches. Use this time to really make friends and learn. So that's just going to be some of your ring etiquette. And this is the show etiquette for everybody. So this is a great experience where we're bringing in friends, we're bringing in relatives who may not necessarily be horse people. And that's wonderful. We want to show off what our kiddos can do. We really want to see these experiences, but not everybody knows how to conduct themselves around a horse show. So as a reminder, use appropriate language. This goes for both the choices of the words that you use as well as your volume. So if there's an active class going on, especially your quieter classes like showmanship, we do ask that you keep your volume lower so that you're not distracting either the youth or the judges or the families. You may be sitting next to the mom who's trying to film her kiddos run, and if you're talking really, really loudly, that's hurting their experience, and then you wouldn't want that for yourself. So the golden rule will apply. Cheer for the other team. So we are in a horse show environment. We are competitive, and healthy competition is good, but that doesn't mean that we can't also support the growth and excellence for other people. So give compliments where you can, offer to help take photos. We are all there to have a good experience, so help celebrate other people as well. When you're in the bleachers, if you've ever sat in bleachers, which I presume pretty much everybody has, bleachers can be really loud. And as you're walking up and down bleachers, they can make a lot of noise. They're very distracting. We understand that, maybe someone's got to go to the bathroom really, really quick, but if you have the ability to wait between classes or between runs to walk around the bleachers, your competitors would definitely appreciate it, just as a common courtesy. Being calm, being positive, be professional. Don't block alleyways or gates. That situational awareness is really key, because somebody may be coming in and they're not paying attention, or maybe your family's gathered around a gate because you're all hanging out and celebrating. Just be aware of your situations. Our non-horse family and friends don't always know that horses are afraid of two things: things that move and things that don't. So they don't necessarily know that your umbrella is probably the scariest thing that the horse has ever seen, or your wagon, or the stuffed toy that your little is bringing along. So just keep in mind that random things scare horses. So if you have those extra items, just keep an eye on how your horses around you are reacting. If you have non-horse people coming to support you, these are good things to remind them of ahead of time, so that they can better enjoy the experience as well and not feel like they're doing something wrong. And when in doubt, give thanks to everyone around you. This horse show has so many youth competing, really great judges, really great volunteers, lots of agents. Give thanks where you can. And even if you don't win, you should still be kind to your horse. So that is etiquette for everybody. We do post these as well, so it's mainly helpful for those coming to support us who aren't horse people. And as for our sportsmanship award, so again, we pride ourselves on being a really friendly area and really taking pride in that sportsmanship and that just overall good human aspect. So our rings will watch you very closely, and you may get a ticket. And if you get a ticket, you can come to office at the M and you can come get a prize for doing something good. So these are Caught You Being Good cards, and then we start looking at our youth overall, and we will recognize one youth in particular who is our sportsman of that year. So good quality sportsmanship includes things like being nice to others, cheering for the other team, just being a good person to themselves and their horse. So we're looking for those characteristics, and we do recognize them with a big old bucket of goodies. So if you didn't get a chance to see our winner from last year, it's a really good recognition, because you don't necessarily have to be the most competitive rider to be the nicest person in the barn. So now we're going to move into some quick, very brief overviews for divisions. So we do see a lot of, more than half of you tonight are first-time showers. So this is just a very brief overview of what you can expect to see within your division. So we're going to turn over Hunter to Miss Grace.
All right, everyone. So just a quick couple of things about the Hunter Ring. And I am not your Hunter Ring chair. We have the fabulous Miss Ann Peterson from Escambia County who's chairing up that ring, and she can feel free to correct me if I say anything wrong. But just to give you a couple of things to be thinking about as you prepare for the Hunter Ring. One thing we will say for all divisions, no matter what, is once again, we can't say it enough. Read your rule book. We are not going to cover everything that there is to know this evening, so you definitely want to check that out for all of the rules that apply to your ring. One thing to keep in mind is that no boots on your horses below the fetlock. Now, we do have an exception for boots if you're in over fences classes, if you want to have some cannon bone protection there. So that is an exception to that rule, but make sure you know that going in. Now, with our under saddle classes, not our walk trot classes, but with our regular under saddle classes, the judge may ask riders to hand gallop at some point. So know going in that you may be asked to move at that more fast-paced speed throughout the course of these classes. That's something you'll want to be prepared for. We will take a moment to note some of those height changes as well for over fences classes in just a moment. So know that there's some really cool things happening with heights for fence classes this year that we're very excited about. But what should you prepare to wear yourself, and what should your horse have for tack? So if you're a rider who is 11 and under, think that junior intermediate age, paddock boots are okay at that point, so you don't need to make an investment in tall boots yet. But you can do paddock boots with garters, and jodhpurs are fine. Now you are allowed to wear braids and ribbons in your hair, so that's perfectly fine. And you can get creative with colors, although know that we are at a 4-H show, so sometimes green is good and maybe a little less distracting. We do encourage black gloves there. Now, if you are a rider who is over 11 years old, at that point, we do need to make some investment in some tall boots there, and definitely some black riding gloves, and hair should be in a bun at that point. So be thinking of that. If you need some recommendations for where you can go for a consignment for some boots or different things like that, start by reaching out to your club leaders, to your 4-H agents, and then they can always feel free to pass those messages back up the line. But there are lots of options without having to spend a lot of money to still get some of those items. For everyone, be thinking tan breeches or jodhpurs, and then white collared shirt. You could do a blue or black show jacket is what is in style, allowed, and fashionable right now, and then a belt that matches your boots. So with our showmanship, you may use a non-embellished leather halter, but the preferred is to have your actual hunter bridle on your horse in the ring for those in-hand classes. So be thinking of that as well as you prepare. And then for tack, you will, regardless of which class you're in, be thinking about having your correct saddle there, and then iron stirrups. And then let's see here, what all else? Breastplates are optional, so you don't have to have that. Martingales are not allowed in any under saddle flat classes. So once again, always go back to that rule book to be thinking about what it is that is allowed and not allowed there. And then draw reins, hackamores are not permitted. And then once again, remember that no boots below the fetlock in any classes, unless we're talking about those over fence classes where you can have some cannon bone protection there. And then no figure 8, flash, or drop nose bands are allowed in those hunter classes. If you're going to braid, braid on the right side, and then tail braids preferred. Clean body clipping is good there too. And Kelsey talked with you earlier about clipping. We won't jump into too much detail there. So some exciting things happening with our over the fence classes this year. So previously, if you have competed at Area North or any of our horse shows, you know that heights were previously determined by age. So now we're not going to be saying that all seniors are showing at this level or juniors showing at this level. Instead, you're going to have 3 height options, and they are going to be up to your selection. You can decide, am I comfortable at that low height 2.3, the medium height 2.6, or the high height 2.9? Now, if you have multiple horses that you're showing, it is for each horse and rider combination that you make that decision. So if you're showing one horse and you're showing over fences at 2.3, you could have another horse that you're showing over fences at 2.6. Now you cannot, with the same horse, pick different classes, different heights. So whatever height you decide to show at that weekend, it's the same for all those classes. So if I'm showing my horse Johnny and I have to show, if I say I'm going to show it 2.6, we have to show it 2.6 in each of our classes. Now, for those who are newer to the show world or newer to riding, and maybe this is your first time really showing with any over fence classes, we do have a non-point walk trot class that is going to have some cross rails. And with that, oops, sorry, I'm losing my microphone. With that class, it is going to be judged on the horse's performance and manners, his style of jumping, way of going, but also with some look at those riders as well. So that will play an element in there too. But if you have questions about that crossrail class, that is an exciting new addition as well. You can feel free to reach out about that. So that is a quick overview of the hunter ring. But once again, I'll say it 10 bazillion times, read through your rule book and make sure you know what each of those classes are. If you have any questions, start with your club leader and agent. You're also welcome to email anyone on this team too. We'll find you an answer.
Yes, and so thank you, Miss Grace. So Hunter Ring has a lot of those socially unwritten rules. So that was one of the things we did want to make sure we started talking about was those socially unwritten rules. So if you want any more judges tips, we did have one of our judges actually come on for our Area North Equine Symposium that did a full-on talk about what's expected and what's encouraged with tack, with attire, with things directly from the judge's mouth. So we do have that recording. I recommend everyone just go ahead and give that a brief listen to because it's so helpful to hear it from the judge themselves. So we'll link that later. Go ahead and look at that. And now we're going to move quickly into our Western Ring, and we'll kind of do a quick overview of all of our major divisions, and then we'll follow up with our bit questions and the preparation activity. So Miss Allie is going to take over for Western.
All right, so we are just going to go over some of the basics to be mindful of if you are showing in the Western Ring. So to start off, what should you wear? So for Western, you will want to wear nice dress pants or nice jeans. If you're wearing something, black, nice pants work best, but if you have nice, clean jeans with no holes or anything like that, that is okay. For shirts, it must be collared and also long sleeve or appropriate show attire. So by appropriate show attire, that could be something like a slinky or a turtleneck, anything that has that collar form and also the long sleeve. Be sure that you'll want to wear some nice Western boots. Ideally, they would kind of coordinate with what colors you're wearing. So black pants, you might want to wear black boots, but any just safe boots will work. Chaps are preferred when riding, but they are optional. Keep in mind for in-hand classes, chaps you do not need to wear for in-hand classes, only for riding classes. You can see in the two pictures here, the one handler who's showing the in-hand class, she's dressed in a little bit blingier of an outfit, but the one who's riding is not quite as blingy. Both of those are perfectly acceptable, great options. So you will not be judged on the blinginess of your attire or your tack. Please know that. Most importantly is safety, but we do want you to look nice and presentable. So make sure everything you bring is clean and appropriate for the ring. For tack, a leather halter is preferred. It is not required to have silver or anything on that, but you are welcome to have a halter that does have silver on it. Same for your saddle and your bridle. If your saddle does have some silver and your bridle has silver, that's perfect. But if not, that's perfect too. So just as long as it's clean and safe, that's the most important thing. No martingales, tie downs, nose bands, leg wraps, boots, or draw reins are allowed. So again, please refer to your rule book. Everything is stated very clearly in there. So be aware of that before you arrive. That way you feel comfortable going in the ring with the tack that is permitted. For grooming, just make sure your horse is clean and neat. So this could involve, maybe you would like to put hoof black or clear polish. Banding is recommended in Western, but most importantly is that your horse's mane is clean and neat. So banding is optional, it's not required. Fake tails are allowed, but please be aware, if they do fall out, you will be disqualified. So if you are using a fake tail, then please, please, please double check it, triple check it. Maybe we suggest maybe don't even use one, just because if it does fall out, you will be disqualified, and we would be really sad to see that. So those are just some of the very basics of the Western Ring, but your rulebook details this and much greater information. So be sure to read through all the rules for all those classes that fall under there. All right, and we will move right into ranch. So for ranch, we don't want to see any hoof black or polish. Ideally, this horse looks like it is ready to go out on a working ranch, so none of the extra bling or anything that we might see in the Western Ring. We don't want to see any banding, no braiding in the mane or tail, so just that your horse's mane is nice, neat, and tidy, but no banding or braiding. Just plain tack, ranch appropriate tack is ideal. You do not need to trim inside of your horse's ears. again, these horses are intended to be suited to purpose to go work on a ranch. So they're not necessarily going to look like a perfectly prim, proper clipped show horse, right? But that's a good thing. That's what we want to see. We want to see the ranch horse. So just keep that in mind when you're getting your horse ready. For tack and attire, same as our Western, we just want Western type dress pants or jeans. The shirt must have a collar and long sleeves, or again, that appropriate show type attire that has similar attributes as that. Ranch work attire is recommended. So you can see the rider here in this photo. She has chink chaps on, she has a handkerchief on. So that's things that you might see out on the working ranch. So that is okay. If you have a rope, you are okay to carry that on your saddle. Horses can wear protective boots only in the ranch reining and the working cow horse classes. So those are the only two classes for ranch that is permitted. So please be aware of that. Like I mentioned, she has chinks on in the photo. So if you have chaps, that is preferred to wear, but it is not required. And again, just no martingales, tie downs, nosebands, or draw reins. For ground handling, which will be your in-hand class, halters only, so no bridles. The halters can be rope, nylon, or plain leather, just a nice, good, safe halter. Big difference with ranch is there is no chains. So you should just have a clip lead rope that is clipped directly to your halter. So no chains like you might have in Western or even maybe in the hunter ring. Expect to conduct ground maneuvers such as sending the horse in the circle, potentially backing, side passing. All of those maneuvers are listed in your rule book. So again, please read those rules because that'll list out everything that you might possibly be asked to perform in that ground handling pattern.
So jumping into speed, if Miss Stephanie wouldn't mind, since she is very actively showing in speed, there are a few nuances to know. So Stephanie, were you care talking about speed life?
Sure. And just for the record, Miss Stephanie's not actively speed. You would not want to see me go around a barrel. But no, so the big things to know, and I know this question has come up a lot in Clay County. And so there is no polo wraps allowed in speed events. So please, and we actually had a conversation with Miss Kelsey earlier, just clarifying polo wraps and other kind of like, oh my gosh, I just lost name, splint boots. You can wear those, but no polo wraps. What you have to remember with polo wraps is when you're running that fast, if they happen to unwrap, that can cause some serious issue with your horses if they get their legs tangled in the wrap. So there's no polo wraps allowed in speed events. That's super important. And that's been around since before all of us have come on. That's always been a state rule. So just keep that in mind. We do have some pretty strict bit rules with speed. And I know every year there's always a couple of speed kids that get to the show and don't have a backup bit and they have to switch bits. We have that happen. So please make sure that you get those pictures to your agent so we can get those bits cleared. We really want to try to help you guys out ahead of time versus have you guys get there and be kind of in a pickle. Obviously, if you're in a pickle, we'll try to help you as much as we can in finding you a bit, but that's not the best thing either, putting your horse in a new bit the day of a show either. So definitely read the rules. We have a great colored rule bit guide. So that's awesome to take a look at. But again, send us those pictures. Your speed horses can have tie downs, nose bands, the martingales, and boots. So if you have questions on those, make sure that you're asking your agents in advance. Again, if you're in a county that doesn't have an agent or doesn't necessarily have a horse agent, just reach out to us. I know a couple years ago, my daughter was riding in a hackamore that had a rope over the nose. She had to have it wrapped with vet wrap. So even just kind of those little things, if you have those kind of questions, just reach out to us. We're all super happy to help you guys because we want you to be very successful. So you can use both hands. That's another thing to keep in mind. And if your horse is one of those happily hot-headed barrel horses that we all have come to know and love, just remember that you can you can be asked to leave, your horse can be asked to leave. It's a safety thing. So try to, you have a little bit of time before the show, just make sure you're working with them in the catch pen areas and in other places, because we really would hate for you guys to get down here and just have your horse that's a little overly hot be disqualified for that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, even with stuff like that, if you have questions, let us know. We all have kind of some tips in our toolbox that we could help you kind of work with your horses a little bit. So also a big thing in 4-H, and I know that we get poo-pooed a lot for this because you can do it in NBHA and the other shows, but you cannot in any way be affixed to your saddle. So that includes and is not limited to rubber bands around your boots and the stirrups, magic seats, or those lovely Velcro seats they like to put kids in sometimes, even goes as far as double-sided tape, Velcro to your saddle, then to your seat. If it's going to affix you to the saddle in any way, it is prohibited. We all know what everybody says they do for you, but in 4-H you cannot use those items. So please just make sure you don't do that, because again, we don't want you guys to get disqualified. And then making sure that you have the right attire. So with Western, you have to wear Western boots, long collared collared long sleeve shirts, or a show shirt. Again, if for some reason you get down there, and we personally had this happen a couple of years ago too, left the show shirt at home and we had to borrow a shirt. So one of the great things, and I think Miss Kelsey or Miss Grace said it earlier, is we have an amazing area. Everybody's very helpful to each other. So if something like that happens, don't hesitate to come to the show office and say, hey, we forgot this, or we don't have that, and let us help you try to find somebody that might have an extra, because I know we all kind of keep extras in our horse trailers. So if you have questions about speed, whether it be the polo wraps, the bits, your bridles, definitely get with us ahead of time and let us try to help that. We had a question on bell boots. Yes, you can use bell boots. So yes, you can use bell boots. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms.
Can
Stephanie.
you maybe clarify? I'm trying to look at questions here and make sure I didn't miss any. Maybe clarify wraps versus polo wraps, if there's anything they can do on their legs other than bell boots, or no?
Well, and that is actually a great question. That, like I said, Miss Kelsey and I actually kind of talked about that earlier, and what the difference is, and then how to explain it to the kids. So basically, the way I would look at it is a polo wrap or a wrap is something that you literally is a long, like, bandage. It's not a bandage, but it's like a long piece of material, and you literally are going to wrap it around the leg, and it's Velcroed at one end. That can come unwrapped. And if that comes unwrapped and gets entwined in their feet, that's what we're trying to avoid. If it's a splint boot, that's one, it's just like one thing. You're wrapping it around the leg and you're adhering it to itself. So if that comes unwrapped or comes unvelcroed, it's going to just fall off, and there's nothing for the horse to become entangled in, if that makes sense. So if you have questions beyond that, you can send me a picture of what you have, and we can let you know if it's permittable or not permittable. But again, the big thing to remember, if it's a long piece of a material that you're wrapping around the leg, that's a no-no for speed. If it's just one thing you're kind of folding around the leg and Velcroing, that's okay.
And
Wendy put a really good description in the chat too. Sorry, Kelsey.
Oh, no, that's what I was going to say. So Miss Wendy is our representative from the state. So she clarified those boot things. So if you are curious about boots, she put it in the chat. Go ahead and take a look at that. And then I'm going to just very briefly jump quick through trail and quickly after that dressage. So trail, we have two different kinds of trail. We have Western and we have ranch trail. Ranch does have different required obstacles. So if you are doing the ranch trail, please be aware that you do have those additional obstacles that are required of you. The biggest thing that we continually see in trail is know which hand that you're working your gait. and know what sides of the cones you're supposed to be on. I have seen, unfortunately, so many youth get disqualified over this simple thing alone. So really look at your pattern, understand where your hands need to be, what side of the cone you need to work on, and just be prepared for that concept. I have seen so many years where we're looking at like an 80% disqualification rate because what happened is the first person went on the wrong side of the cone, and then everybody followed that same pattern and they ended up getting disqualified. So know your pattern, don't necessarily watch what everyone else is doing, and be accurate for that. This year you can walk that course from 10 to 11, so I do recommend it just so that you can see those obstacles and get your game plan in for how much time and space you need between obstacles. Let your judge know your number and if you are riding the Western or the Ranch Trail. So our trails are incorporated into one arena. So you'll need to know where your obstacles are, that pattern, and you'll need to let your judge know which pattern she is following with you. The way our trail is set open is it's an open time slot, so come when you're ready, but I will let you know that it gets backed up every year at the end, and we're always waiting on trail scores because everybody wants to wait till the end. So if you can, get it done. You and your horse will appreciate getting those things done ahead of time. At some point, if you've got questions, ask your judge before starting your pattern. And if you do get tripped up or if you're having a bad day with a particular obstacle, you may be asked to move on to that obstacle. Don't let it get under your skin. I know that's really hard for us to say and even harder to put into practice, but move on to that next obstacle confident and ready for it, because your judge is also going to want to see how you conduct yourself throughout that whole show. So if you have a bad obstacle, don't let it be the bad day. So keep confident, know your trail pattern, and be aware that we do recommend walking it on foot so you're more prepared. So dressage, for those of you that ride dressage, we have one arena set for both Western and traditional dressage. We are going to use the standard long arena. And with that being said, we do things a little different in 4-H dressage than maybe you're looking at some of your other dressage associations. So something we see typically is you have your rider number on your bridle and it's really, really cute, but that does not work for our rider number rules. So wear your numbers just like you would for your other classes. I try to catch them where I can when I see that, but it's cute, but that's not what we're doing right now. If this is your first year doing dressage, Mr. Terry is at the gate. He is so wonderful. Please ask him questions. He's seen the flow. He can answer the questions. You'll have a scribe and you'll have a judge. Take your time. We don't have a set ride time because it's also an open order of go. So if you get there and you're ready, go ahead and get it done. And if you need a few more minutes, you can take those few minutes. But we try to get all of our Western dressage riders first and then move to our traditional. There are some bit differences between dressage and hunter that have tripped people up in the past. There are some bits that are allowed in hunter that are not allowed in dressage. So please double check your bits, and then when you are getting them checked in at check-in, let Miss Wendy or whoever our representative for that year, being our bit checker, know that this is dressage, not just hunter, because if we can catch it early, trust me, you're going to have a much better night. This unfortunately happened a few years ago, and a rider who had an amazing ride was not able to compete with her scores because she had the wrong bit. So please keep that in mind. It's a little bit nuanced, but we don't want anyone to get disqualified over something small. And then when you are done with your ride, please smile and pat your horse and thank the judge. We know that even if it's a good ride or a bad ride, we should always be kind to ourselves and kind to our horse and kind to our judge. So keep that in mind. That is something we do look for at the end of dressage. If for whatever reason you want to protest something, life happens. We understand there can be confusion, there can be conflicts. We do have an official show committee that handles conflicts. What we ask is there's a $100 cash only deposit fee. If your protest wins, you get it back. If your protest does not move forward, we put it towards the pot. And honestly, we put that stuff, it very rarely happens, but if we do get that extra money, we just put it towards awards for the next year. So it's not anything that we're using for nefarious purposes. We put it back for our kiddos. But if there is something you do want to protest, we will have people and a committee ready that will look at those rules and look at that situation and hopefully address your concerns. We have also seen a lot of people that have concerns or have issues. What I always love to say is, if you have the ability, volunteer. Most of the time when we're seeing things that are causing us to be upset, it's because there's a lack of personnel supporting that particular moment. So if you can, volunteer. Adults and youth are always welcome. The final set of general tips. It is hot, y'all. If you have ever been to the Area North Show, you're gonna sweat, your horse is gonna sweat. Please hydrate. Make sure your horse is hydrated. If anyone's ever seen me, I love kind of being the show mom. I have a little go bucket that's got waters, it's got safety pins, it's got baby wipes. I walk around with my little bucket and I'm making sure everyone's drinking and they're clean and they're happy. So that ringside little go bucket is going to be a lifesaver. The more grooming you can do ahead of time, with all reason. Again, I have the Mud Monster horse. It's never going to be all done and clean that night. The more you can do ahead of time, the better. The checklist helps. Even if you've shown a million times, there's always something you forget. So hopefully if there is something you do forget this year, that the equine exchange that we're doing this year, hopefully we can kind of fill in those gaps and help everybody out. Clean all of your tack. Yes, all of it. Every buckle, every strap, every bit. Because the more attention to detail that you put into it, your judge really does see and recognize, and they will reward effort. If you need help, ask more experienced showmen. So especially those that have showed plenty of times, they've got tips, they've got tricks. Ask them for help. You know, learn from each other, and that's really a great place to do that. If you have the time, watch a whole different division, because you're going to have so much fun watching the cattle boxing class if all you've ever seen maybe is the hunter. So really encourage your friends from other parts of your county, as well as just support the whole show, and you'll have fun and you'll learn so much by watching those different nuances. If you're stressed, you're going to be stressed. Nobody has a stress-free horse show weekend. That just doesn't happen. It's okay to take a moment, sit in a stall, breathe. Don't take it out on those around you. Parents and youth are both bad at this. It's okay to be stressed. Just make sure that we're managing it in a safe and healthy way. Don't feed or pet other people's horses without their permission. You don't know if they've got dietary restriction issues, if they've got allergies, or some horses, as soon as they get that one cookie, they think they're done and they're a total turd the rest of the show. So keep in mind that, you know, you can ask those permissions and respect if they say no, or they might say, absolutely, come cuddle on my horse, he would love it. So ask those questions. And when in doubt, again, be nice. Whew. So now we're going to move on to potentially the controversial and usually the part where most people have the questions. We do have some bit rule changes, and so I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Wendy because she is the way more expert than I am in this moment. So this is all going to be about bits.
Miss Kelsey, how long should I spend on this? I mean, there's only 2 minutes left of the thing.
As long as you feel is necessary.
So all right. So what time's everyone's bedtime? All right. Well, first, just to revisit a couple little things from before. Stephanie did a great job emphasizing that no polar wraps are allowed in speed events. A step farther, it's actually the whole show. So no matter what division you're in, polar wraps are not a thing. I believe that's up in the general rules. And also on the speed events, we did edit the stake race pattern this year to mirror what they do at quarter horse. Whereas before, when you ran towards your first pole, you had the option of running through the timer and going straight to the pole, or you could diagonal through between the poles and then go around it. Now you have to cross the center line between the poles. So you only have, your only option now is left or right. So again, they've said it a million times. Look at the rule book, check out your stake race pattern, especially because if you're used to starting at the start line and running straight to the pole, you need to practice going through that diagonal line through the center and then around the pole one way or another. The information about boots I put on the rule book page. We have something called a jargon translator. We initially made that for 4-H agents that may not know all this lingo that's in the horse world. And I think that's expanded to first-time horse owners or horse parents, where they're not keeping up with all the things their youth talk about. There's pictures, there's definitions. A lot of it is related to how it falls into the rule book. So the rule book web link has a link to that jargon translator. And towards the end of it, there's a page on boots that everyone covered individually. There's a page on the various kinds of hunter bridles and the versions of nose bands that are allowed in dressage, but not hunter bridles. And then there's also the bit rule document that's on there too. So without going into a whole hour-long presentation on bits, there's not a whole lot I'm really going to say up front. I don't know if a lot of people brought pictures, but I think I'm going to start with the two disclaimers. So we know fully well, and I hope you all know too, that the biggest thing that affects the strength or the gentleness of your bit is this right here, how educated you are with your hands and how kind you ride with them and how soft or purposeful you ride with them, how you do releases as reward after the horse gives their response. So you can have what's considered just a super soft, nice little snaffle, and you can really hurt your horse's mouth with it, or you can have what many would perceive as a much stronger curb bit, and you could ride with the utmost gentleness of it. So it really comes back to your hands, and that's what we want you to be mindful of as you are practicing with any kind of bit, is start with yourself, how you're using that bit. If your bit's not working, maybe back up a step on training until you are getting your horse to respond instead of just automatically defaulting to a stronger bit. Granted, some horses just don't like the feel of some bits. We have a horse at the horse farm that it took us forever to Mr. Joel to figure out that he just doesn't like a broken mouthpiece. And we start all the horses out there with a broken mouth snaffle, and he fussed and fussed and fussed until he finally put something solid in there, and then he's happy as can be. So yes, some horses just prefer some things to others. Some might need something that they can feel a little sooner. And I like using that terminology as opposed to more severe, just because severe has a bad connotation with some of the stronger bits. So I'd say bits that can be felt sooner. So those might be the ones that have some non-smooth edges or a longer shank or something. So speaking of non-smooth versus smooth, that's probably one of the biggest things that we look at. Almost all the Western bits, we say it has to be smooth on the mouthpiece. So that means there's no twists or wrinkles. I don't know if anybody has their camera on, but that would be not smooth because it has all these little bumps. And the reason that matters is because the pressure point would be concentrated on all the individual little bumps instead of smoothly balanced out across their tongue. And if you weren't looking, I'm holding up what we call a corkscrew bit. It's a fast twist. And along those lines, you'll notice that in the hunter ring, we allow those non-smooth mouthpieces, whereas in the Western ring, we do not. And it's not because we think hunter people have better hands and can handle it. It's not because we think Western horses will freak out if they have the bumps. The difference is in the Western classes, once they get to the mature age, they can move on to a curb bit, which allows the leverage, a little bit stronger pressure that can be put with a softer aid. So we don't need the bumps, the extra ridges on the mouthpiece to get their attention. However, in the hunters, they're almost all wearing just a plain snaffle, and they can't really go up unless they want to do a pelham with 4 reins, and people just don't want to deal with that and what's supposed to look like a nice calm hunter. So on those we've allowed, since they can't move on to the leverage, we have allowed where they can have the slightly non-smooth, which means more pressure points on their mouthpiece. So that's kind of the backstory on smooth versus non-smooth. The other big thing that came up last year is how much rise and fall of the mouthpiece we count before it is considered a slip mouthpiece or a gag bit. And if you go to the bit examples, we've added a whole page of examples, just that. And somebody from Area North might recognize one of those because we took one of the pictures that was sent last year and put it in there as an example. And it was legal, by the way. So what Joel and I and Dr. Tenbrook came down to is there's a myriad of bits that the mouthpiece slides up and down on a straight bar, maybe a 1/4 inch or less. And that is mainly, it's really not going to pull up enough when you pull the reins to cause that extra pressure on the pole and really multiply the tension on the top of the corners of their mouth as a slip mouthpiece. So that is mainly just gives the horse a little 1/4 inch of flexibility to carry the bar himself at a comfortable level. So those are okay. If the part where the mouthpiece attached is rounded and the bit can slide around a curve, which means it could easily move an inch or so as it rotates, that crosses over into the slip mouthpiece, and those are not allowed. And there's some really good pictures on that bit guide that help show what's okay. And when I say allowed now, I'm talking Western and Ranch divisions, because in the Speed division, the slip or gag type action is allowed. So all of those types would be allowed for Speed. And speaking of Speed, one of the things that was I think more of a controversy between our office, because we all had strong opinions on how things were defined, and we finally sorted that out, were the nose bands that were basically the raw latigo type nose bands, like that, not rawhide, but like latigo rope material. And it's very popular now, almost ubiquitous in the kinds of, especially if it's a combination bit, we'll have that plain nose band. And those are fine, not wrapped. They do fall into the mechanical Hackmore category. So if it was really hard rawhide and not flexible, it would need to have some sort of wrapping cushion. But that latigo rope has enough flexibility that we're counting that as not a rigid material on their nose, and you can use that plain. So we didn't change any rules. We just clarified that the latigo style nose bands are allowed to be as is unwrapped. So those are the main things I wanted to cover. There's a lot more, and I think that was almost 10 minutes as it was. So do we ask for questions, show and tell, or have people wait after to show what they brought, or what do you want to do?
We do have a couple of clarification questions in the chat. So the first one I'm seeing is, are French links allowed in Hunter?
Yes, French links are allowed in Hunter. And I did see the question about French links in dressage, because just this year and almost within the last month, USEF has disallowed Dr. Bristol's and French links. They're very similar bits. I think Dr. Bristol right here. So, but that came after our rule book was published. So for this year, Dr. Bristol's and French links are allowed in dressage. We will make our dressage judges aware of that. We give them the rule book and we'll point that out. So they are allowed. We can't say definitively next year because we'll have our advisory committee meeting in the fall, and typically we follow industry. So I would suspect they would not be allowed next year, but they are allowed this year. And in the Hunter division, they just fit into the basic parameters of measurements that we've given, and they're fine. French link and Dr. Bristol.
The next one I'm
with a lozenge legal in Hunter or dressage. So yeah, that lozenge center link is perfectly fine because it's big, round, and smooth usually. And so you're talking a hanging sheep that does not use a curb strap, I assume, that you just have the high keeper, almost like a just one blank on it. But anyway, yes, for Hunter, and I believe dressage, here I am checking the rule book because I'm pretty sure we have a picture of that exact bit in our dressage list. Yep, it's number 7. Voucher, that was the word I couldn't come up with, the voucher snaffle. So yes, that is allowed, and a center link that is a lozenge is allowed in dressage. And the way dressage bits go, if the mouthpiece is legal and the cheek piece is legal, it can be mix and match, and they're both good.
You do have one about rawhide bozels permitted for all Western dressage horses.
Yes, I believe so. Well, y'all are good. You're gonna make me just read the rule book. Western dressage is that one that's a little different because what usually applies to all the young horses would apply to more. And I also know that you can ride with two hands in Western dressage, even though you're wearing a curb bit or something that in a regular class would require one hand. So yes, you're right here, bits that may be used on horses of any age. So snaffle. So in the regular Western pleasure and horsemanship, you can only use a snaffle up to 5 years. Western dressage, you can use it at any age. And you can use a bozal type hackmore, again, not a mechanical hackmore. And you can use a bitless bridle. That was, I think, might have showed up in a hippology question this year. You can use a bitless bridle, and those are just a little bit different from hackmores because they're more like a direct pressure side pull kind of thing. And that's our only Western dressage is the only class that's allowed in. Shanks allowed in Western dressage. Yes. So you can ride with a regular shanked curb bit. And that's what I said. You can use two hands with those shanked bits if you'd like. And fast twist bits allowed in barrel racing. The mouthpiece materials follow the same rules as the general Western and ranch. So they have to be smooth mouth in the speed events also. They can have the gag action. You can use mechanical hackmores, but the mouthpiece still has to be smooth. So the fast twist bit, slow twist, twisted wire, any sort of weird concoction you can think of would not be allowed in speed events. That's the end of the questions. Lisa in the chat.
So with that, if anybody has bits that they brought with them that they want to do show and tell via video with Miss Wendy, now is a great time. Because it is almost 8:15, we understand that is late, at least 8:15 for our Eastern folks. I know our Central folks, you get a little bit more time. But if you've got pictures of your bits, please send them to us. We're happy to look at them because we want to get that ahead of time so that when you show up on show day, poor Miss Wendy doesn't have to not give you your zip tie of approval.
It really is hard to turn people away at the show, but because you want to say, well, maybe just today, but fix it by state, but that's okay in the rule break. So, so you've been warned, but it is hard. We really don't like turning people away, but we do have to stick to the rules.
Well, and Kelsey, I was going to add in there just quickly, because I know we had this happen last year and it's happened in years before, but last year was pretty intense that, we have had kids and parents yell at Miss Wendy during bit check. And as somebody who is the grounds facilitator, I've kind of decided that I will step in a little bit more to alleviate that. But I think bigger picture is just that we all keep in mind, we have these pre-meetings. We send out emails and strongly encourage you guys to please reach out to us ahead of time so that, we have that opportunity to make sure you have the correct bits, so that we don't have to have people upset at the shows and getting upset with Miss Wendy. She's not making up these rules as she goes. They've been announced. They're in the rule books. So please just keep that in mind. And I kind of think everybody on this call's got it. It's going to be those people who didn't attend the call. But just a reminder that everybody who comes, is giving up their weekends and giving up their time, Miss Wendy included. So we just need to keep that in mind when we have opportunities to make sure stuff is correct before the show even happens. So.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, where we see the most drama does involve the bit world. So that's why we try to get ahead of it ahead of time. So yeah, let us know ahead of time. We've got weeks before our show, so we'll get you covered. So the last thing I have, this is especially great for any of my first time showers. So if you are not a first time shower, you are welcome to go ahead and call it a night if you'd like to, or you can leave us more questions in the chat. But for our first time showers, this is an activity that I have done with my own county. And I do it with myself still because I forget things all the time. So this is a getting ready activity. So we know that you can have up to 5 classes at area. And so what I like to do is I get 5 note cards. I am also that person who likes different colors. So I usually have a color card per class or per division if I'm doing multiple divisions. And on the front, so the non-line section, I write the name of the class, what day, what time, what ring it is, anything of that quick, where do I need to go, usually goes on the front. On the back side, I write those nuances of that class. So am I the one being judged? Is my horse the one being judged? Can I have a certain kind of boot? Any of those little things that you forget in that last minute, this is where you can write those little reminders. This can also be good for training things. So if you know your horse needs a particular training aid or something you need to be aware of for that class, you can write on here as your quick guide, because our brains are such soup at the end of a horse show day. So I love having this on like a quick little ring, and I just flip through them, and as I go, I only have to focus on one card at a time. So I write down those rules. So I have my big rule book, but ringside, with that ring, I have my go bucket of my waters, my Gatorades, my bobby pins, my baby wipes, and my cards. So it's a really great, easy way to just put things in a small, easier to digest and understand manner. And then you can always just help those with other people. So this is a great thing to do with your club or with your coach. Go ahead and look at the classes that you did sign up for or plan on signing up for, and having those organizational cards really help. I do also have extra tasty goodies. If anybody shows me their preparation cards at check-in, I do have extra little gifts. Since you did that activity, I do reward it. So I highly recommend it. It's very helpful. But with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. This is recorded, so if any of that information kind of went in one ear, out the other, and you're overwhelmed, hopefully you're less overwhelmed, but we hope this helps. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. And ultimately, registration closes Thursday. We hope to see you. We hope to have another good show, and we are your team to making sure that you have a good experience. So I'm Miss Kelsey. I'm your chair for this year. Please let me know what I can do to make this a good thing for you. All right.
Kelsey, with the questions that are coming through in the chat, do we want to send an email, or do we just want to stay on and answer them as they're coming in?
I'm okay staying on until no later than 8:30.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop.